Hi everybody and welcome to the What's New webinar for version 1.75. The latest release of Mission Control is available as of the 2nd of May. So what we'll do is jump in and take a look at the enhancements that are included. So have got a few new features as well as some enhancements to existing functionality, which we'll walk you through. The main new features are a new feature called resource requests. We've also added in a component that will allow you to easily manage role forecasts for a number of roles across a number of projects that we're referring to as the role assignment manager. We're also including constraint scheduling within the Gantt chart dependencies. You've now got the ability to log your completion percentage at the checklist item level in a similar manner to how it is currently available at the action level. We've also got a feature that will automatically generate sharing rules for you if you are wanting to lock your projects down to private and just have them automatically shared with anyone that's been assigned ownership of anything across the project. We've also made some enhancements to the reassignment wizard and then a few minor enhancements to a few other areas of the system that we'll cover off shortly. So the resource request. So there's ultimately a new object that's been added that sits underneath the project that allows project managers to submit requests for resources that they need on their project, and then those resource requests can be centrally managed by a resource manager. So the resource request component, which is a new tab that's available on the resource planner, will allow those resource managers to search and profile suitable resources, taking into account availability, skill set, team membership, charge rates, and so on. And then once they've identified the most appropriate resource, they can then assign that person to the project in one of two ways. They can choose to create role forecast records for that role, as well as transfer any ownership on the work breakdown structure within the project. The role assignment manager, as I say, this is a component that allows, again, resource managers to be managing the role forecast records across multiple projects. So you're able to view a selection of resources, and then on a matrix view, you'll be able to see what projects they're working on, and ultimately you'll be able to control and edit and create the role forecast records. But you'll also be able to do what we're referring to as double resourcing. So comparing those role forecast allocations to the actual assignments that have been allocated to those people at the action level. So for example, Mick may have been allocated to a project via role forecasts for 100 hours during May, whereas currently, if we're looking at the amount of hours that have been assigned to Mick at an action level on that project, it might be that he's only been given 40 hours. So that allows the resource manager to identify that there could potentially be an opportunity to redistribute Mick elsewhere, or speak with the project manager and make sure they're actually using up the hours that have been allocated from that role forecast. So the constraint scheduling, this is a feature we refer to it on the Gantt chart because it's most obviously visualized, but it's supported right through the system. So you're able to have greater control over dependencies. So rather than just setting a dependency to be immediately dependent on a predecessor, you can actually put in a constraint type. So the constraint can be, by default, it will be as soon as possible, but you can see on the screen here the other constraint types that we support. So for example, we might have an action for deliver training that is dependent on the preparation of the training materials. So obviously you can't deliver the training before the training materials have been created, but the client might have specified a specific date that they want that training on as well. So even though it's dependent on the training materials being prepared, it is still, there's a constraint there that the client has said it can't happen before a specific date. So we can still track the dependency, but also work in the confines of that constraint as well. Similar to how the completion percentage is tracked on the action object, you now also have the ability to do that on the checklist item object as well. So it's the exact same functionality. So if you leave it alone and you're logging time against that checklist item, it will automatically calculate for you. However, you can override that, and then obviously by overriding that, you get insight into the projected hours that you're expecting it to take because of that manual override. The project sharing rules, so as I say, this gives you the ability to lock projects down to being private through the standard Salesforce org-wide sharing rules. And this will automatically create sharing records for the people that are being assigned ownership on a project. So for example, if I assign someone as a milestone owner or a risk owner or a responsible for a specific issue on the project, the sharing records will automatically be created to ensure that person immediately has access to the full project plan. The reassignment wizard has had a few different updates to it. So if you're using rate adjustments on the projects that you're doing the reassignment on, you're actually able to you're able to immediately clone the rate adjustment record. So if let's say you've got rate adjustments for Mick and you're transferring that ownership over to Kelly, then you can, rather than having to go and do that separately, you can have the rate adjustments that exist for Mick on that project. You can have them automatically copied over to Kelly. You're also able to now transfer ownership of the phase records, which previously wasn't supported. And just to increase efficiency when using this feature, there's now a quick copy. So let's say I'm transferring everything that Mick is responsible for over to Kelly. Now Mick might be the project owner, he might be a phase owner, a milestone owner, he might own some actions, he might own some checklist items, he might also be a contributor. So previously I would have to populate all of those individual lookup fields separately. Now what you're able to do is populate one and then click the copy button, and that will populate the same value into all of the other fields. So making it far more efficient to do a mass transfer. A few minor enhancements. So the sprint board, we've added in a couple of fields at the sprint team level. So previously, anything that wasn't already allocated in terms of capacity. So let's say Mick has 100 hours available during a period, but 20 of those hours have already been allocated to other projects, then by default the sprint capacity for Mick would be determined to be 80. Now what you might want to do is actually refine that further and say, well, I don't want to take all of the 80 hours, I only want to take 50% of it, or I might only want to take 60 of those hours. So we've added in fields into the sprint team section of the sprint board where you can put in the ability to set the hours that are going to be available for that role for that particular sprint. We've also added in a validation rule on the holiday object. So it prevents the days taken from being a greater value than the period between start date and end date. So ultimately just ensuring people aren't incorrectly putting in the wrong number based on the dates that the holiday is scheduled for. There was a time log, there was a validation rule on the time log that was preventing the hours completed of an action being greater than the hours scheduled for a fixed price project. Now that was working fine if you were inserting one time log at a time, but that has now, so if you were to insert two time logs at the exact same time, for example via the timesheet, then each one of them on their own might not invoke the validation rule, but if you were to combine them together, then it would need to invoke the validation rule. And in some instances, that wasn't always being invoked. So we've replaced that logic with an Apex trigger. So the validation rule has been deprecated, and the functionality is now controlled via two settings on the control pad of the mission control console. So you can enforce this for billable hours and or non-billable hours. So there's two separate settings that have been added to the project automation settings tile. The first one is disable fixed price billable hours enforcement, and the second one is disable fixed price non-billable hours enforcement. So, as it would suggest, these rules are going to be applied by default. Now, if you don't want them to be applied, you would just need to go and set those settings to true. So, ultimately, if the setting is false, you're not going to be able to log time that would cause the action's hours completed to be greater than the hours scheduled. And then we've just added in an additional setting on the role utilization report. So we previously had 5 different fields that were all controlled or displayed by one setting. So the billable capacity performance percentage, billable target hours, and billable performance percentage were all controlled by one setting. That's now been split into 2, so customers can choose which sections they have displayed. So the billable capacity and billable capacity performance percentage are now controlled by one setting, and then billable target hours, and billable performance percentage is controlled by a different setting. So just giving you greater flexibility around what information is displayed on the role utilization report. Okay, so that's a very quick overview. So let's now jump into a demo and take a look at some of those key features in a bit more detail. The first feature we're going to take a look at is the resource request component. So just before we jump in and start taking a look at this, I will cover off that we've added 2 new components to the resource planner. So you'll see here I've got access to the previously I had access to the overview and planner tabs. I now have access to the resource request tab and the assignment manager tab. Now we'll cover off the assignment manager later, but these 2 tabs are now available. Now these can be controlled as to who has access to them. So for example, you might want someone to be able to see the overview and the planner, but you don't want them to have access to the assignment manager and resource request tabs. Now, similar to all other tab control, that's managed by the individual person's role record. So I'll just go onto my role record and show you that we've added in some new fields that allow you to control who has access to which tab on the resource planner. So if I go down, you'll see that there's this section for resource planner settings. So there's a default tab, so I can choose which of my tabs I want to load by default each time I go to the page, and then I can also choose whether I'm able to view the overview tab, the planner tab, the assignment manager tab, and the resource request tab. So that allows you to, now be it by default, these will all be turned on, but you can control that on an individual role record. While we're here, I'll just highlight we've also included this charge level, which is used within the resource request tab. So rather than displaying the actual rates that individual resources get charged, you're able to just indicate, are they an expensive or a cheaper resource. So just by indicating high, medium, or low, that gives you the ability to specify whether they're, what their charge level is. To give, and you'll see when we're looking at the resource request, it's it's used in conjunction with an image to give you a visual indicator. So the resource request. So what we find is obviously maybe in smaller organizations, the project managers are responsible for resourcing their own projects. So they look at all of the available resources, and they can assign them through various tools like the auto assignment wizard, the resource assignment wizard, and so on. Where you might have a larger organization and a larger pool of resources, we find that can often that resource assignment can often be channeled through to a resource manager. So rather than the project manager looking at all of the resources and making a decision themselves as to who they're going to assign to their project, they submit a request for the type of resource they need. That resource request is then reviewed by a resource manager, who will then fulfill that based on what they feel is the appropriate resource. So we're gonna walk through how the resource request feature works. Now, as an individual project manager, you can submit resource requests from your project. So I'm working on a release of mission control here. So if I click on my related tab, I've already created three resource requests. I'm just going to create another one. So I simply click on the new button, and now I'm going to say that this has been requested by me. And now I'm indicating what function do I need this person to have. So I'm looking for a tester, and what I need is, so I'm going to just put in some information that the resource manager can then use to help understand what I'm looking for. So once I've filled in that information, I can also specify when I'm looking for them. So I'm looking for that to start early May. Now I can put in either working days or end date, and the other one will calculate automatically for me. So I'm going to say that I'm looking for this person for 10 working days. Now I can indicate, do I need them for a set number of hours, or do I need them for a percentage of their availability? I need them specifically for 40 hours. So I'm going to submit that request. So as the project manager, that's all I need to do. So now, if as the resource manager, if I go back and just refresh the page here, you'll see that my additional resource request has been added. So I can now see my tester here. So that's the new resource request that project manager has submitted. So what are we looking at here on the resource request? So down on the left hand side, this is where the resource manager can see all of the resource requests that they need to process. So they're grouped by project, so I can see the various projects and then the individual resource requests that have been submitted. From here, I can click in to edit the individual record. I can click onto this to populate the information over on this section. I can jump into Chatter to clarify with the project owner. I might have some questions around what they're specifically looking for, or if I need to, I can delete a resource request as well. So I'm actually going to take a look at this project manager request. So I'm just going to click on the eye icon. That's going to automatically populate this section here. Now, so you can see it's telling me, so I need to find a project manager. It's been requested by this person, what the project is and what they're looking for. So it's automatically populated with the information that's come in from the resource request. So I can see they're looking for someone from the 31st of March through to the 23rd of June. I can see we're looking for 100% of that person's availability. Now it's automatically populated the function, and as I'm building up so I can come in and say, right, well, I need someone on. Maybe I'm looking for someone with a master team of project management, or I might just be looking to make sure that they are a member of a particular team. So as I'm building up the skill set that I'm looking for, that will be remembered. So if I've gone through the process of like finding out the filter criteria, and then I get moved on to something else and I want to come back, I don't have to reapply the search criteria, or it will be remembered for me. You've also got the ability to specify like skill proficiencies, whether they're, whether it's equals, greater than. So for example, I might be looking for skill proficiency greater than 5, for example, or want to factor in how much the person enjoys being a project manager. So once I've got all of the filter criteria ready, I just click on search. So what that's gone away and done is pulled back, it's gone and filtered down my resources, and I'm getting a card for each individual person that's matching the criteria that I'm searching for. So I can see Alana here, I can see her job title is project manager, function is project manager. I can see there's that charge level, so I can see as a comparison, she's obviously a more economical resource than if I was to put Barbara on there. So I can use that as part of my decision making process. So I can see overall capacity. So you can see, Alana's definitely available to do this. She's got no existing allocations. I've got Barbara and Charles who have a bit more allocation, albeit they've got the capacity to take this on. Now, if I scroll over, you'll see that I've got multiple different resources here. In addition to the capacity, I can see, do they meet all of the criteria that I'm looking for? So are they a member of, are they a member of the teams that I'm searching for? Do they have the skills that I'm looking for as well? So you can see here that Alana doesn't have the skill of Apex, but she does have configuration, and I can see skill proficiency and enjoyment factor. Now, if I'm wanting to do, if I might still get a list of 20 resources, and I would have to go through and work out which one was the most appropriate. Now, rather than, let's say I'm looking at potentially Christopher and Alana. Now, rather than having to keep scrolling backwards and forwards and trying to compare the data, I can just temporarily remove the ones that I'm not interested in. So if I say, look, I want to look at Alana and I want to look at Christopher, so only filter, just do a comparison between those two. So really what that does is just removes the other cards for me. So now I can just do a side-by-side comparison of the two resources that I think are most appropriate. So what I'm going to do is just quickly do a scan. Now I can see, they've both got a very similar skill set. They can both do configuration. They can't do Apex, but I can see here that Alana is more proficient at it, and she actually enjoys it more than Christopher does. In addition to that, I know the request was for 100% of their availability. Now I can see during this time, Christopher does have other things as well. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to assign Alana to this. So I'm going to click on the select button here. Now I can do a couple of things here. What I'm able to do is choose to create role forecast records and or do a resource, do an ownership reassignment. So let's say that project already has a placeholder for a project manager. What I'm able to do is do a reassignment of all of the work. Now it's currently assigned to myself. So what I would do is just say, right, anything that's assigned to Colin on that project. So that's going to be whether they're a project owner, a phase owner, a milestone owner, action owner, contributor, or checklist item owner. I can transfer that existing work over to Alana. In addition to that, I can also create my role forecast records. So I can specify what date range am I looking to have this person assigned to the project from a role forecast perspective? Do I want to assign a skill? I can put in the rates. Now the rates would get pulled in if they already existed, and you can see here it's pulled in late. So the request is for 100% of their billable time. We don't need any non-billable. So if I'm happy with that, I can choose. I can click on save. But just before I do that, I can choose how many role forecast records do I want to create. Now by default, it will create one single record for the entire duration. But in context of using something like the role assignment manager, which we're going to take a look at shortly, you can choose to have that role forecast split up into multiple records. Now you can create a single one, or you can choose to create one per week, or you could create one per month. So by choosing either of these, you're going to end up with multiple role forecasts based on the duration of the action. So for example, this is from the 31st of March through to the 23rd of June. So one per month. I would end up getting four separate ones. I'd get one for the time in March, one for the time in April, one for the time in May, and then one for the time in June. So that just allows me to split that up and like helps me if I'm wanting to drill into specific time periods on the role assignment manager. So I'm going to click on save there. So what that will do is create my role forecast records. It will also transfer ownership from me over to Alana. So that's that resource request completed, and then as the resource manager, I'm able to move on to the next one. So that would obviously disappear from my list because I've now already done that, and that would be moved. That would be complete once I've done it. So my list will start getting shorter once I've actually So I'm only ever going to see the resource requests that I need to process from here. Within the resource planner, we've added a new tab called the Assignment Manager. So this is a component that provides resource managers with the ability to view all role allocations that they've assigned to roles across a selection of projects across a period of time. So just before we jump in and take a look at it, similar to the resource request tab, you can control who has access to the assignment manager tab on their individual role record. So I'll just jump over to my role record. You'll see I'm in edit mode. So in order to access the assignment manager tab of the resource planner, you just need to make sure that we've got this field set to true. And if I want the assignment manager to load by default, I just make sure that that's set in the default value there as well. So providing you've got access to that, when you go to the when you get to the resource planner, you'll see that you've got access to the assignment manager tab. So it's when you first load it, what you need to do is like determine your date settings and then the filters. And the filters are going to control the roles and the projects that you're looking at. So first of all, on the filters, you'll see that it will default to whatever your persistent setting is. So your default date range can be either week, month, or quarter. And so it will persistently remember that the next time you come around. So I'm looking at a month, so it's obviously looking at the month of May for me. I can also choose how I'm grouping my roles when I'm looking at them, and we'll come back and take a look at these options in a moment. But you've got the option to just group them by roles. So it's just going to sort all of the roles that you're looking at in alphabetical order, or you could group them by the master team that they're a member of, or you could group it by their function, whether that's project manager, developer, and so on. So I'll leave it as role for now. So I'm going to be looking at role allocations for a particular month, in this instance, May. And over on the right-hand side, this is where I can choose who and what I want to look at. So I can select people roles based on whether they're in a master team or maybe they're just a member of a particular team. So I'm going to be actually searching for people who are in the project managers team or the developers team. So they don't have to be in both, so I'm making sure that my toggle is set to all. If I wanted to make sure I was only looking at people that are in the project manager team and the developer team, I would switch that over to and. In terms of my project filters, I can choose from a list or I can create filters. So in this instance, I'll be selecting from a list, but I'll just toggle over there just to show you you've got the ability to create your filters based on project fields. So I could be saying, where category equals X, this is what I want to filter down on, or status is not equal to complete, or archived is false, whatever your filter criteria might be. And you can obviously save those filters to be preset ongoing. So what I'll do in this instance is just select a few projects to look at, and I'm going to just click on filter there. So when I click on filter, the settings and filters collapse, and then the assignment manager is displayed. So just to familiarize you with what we're looking at here, so down the left-hand side on the rows, we're looking at the individual people, and then the columns are made up from the projects that we're looking at. Now, on the left-hand side of the projects, we've just got a summary of the information. So what we're looking at here for each individual person is, what work, what allocations have they been assigned to on that project from a role forecast perspective. So Alana is a project manager. We can identify that from her function. So we can see how many hours she's got available during this period, how many hours have already been allocated. So what percentage of her capacity has already been allocated to projects, and then insight into her billable capacity as well, because we're able to look at billable and non-billable work here. So we can see that, so Alana's not assigned to the Aprika website build project, but she's been assigned 40 billable hours on the Quicksilver project and 80 billable hours on the Ripcurl project. So obviously that's summing up to give us that indication. Now, below that, we see our action assignments, and this is where we refer to this as double resourcing. So we're initially allocating the resource to the project by creating a role forecast record, and then of those hours, we can then use those we can identify how much time has been allocated to that project for that person, and then as we're assigning actions to that person, that will come up in the action assignments. So as an example, we can see Bethany here. She's working on the Aprika project. She's got a role forecast of 20 hours, and I can see that there's an action assignment of 6 hours. So as a resource manager, that allows me to identify that, we've allocated this person to the project for 20 hours, but so far she's only been allocated 6 hours work. So that allows me as a resource manager to say, well, okay, I'm going to reach out to that project manager to see whether Bethany is actually available to transfer those hours onto other projects, or is it a case of like we just haven't actually assigned her yet. So making sure that we're staying on top of the action assignments to make sure we're actually using all of the hours that we've been allocated to the project. So obviously helping us drive capacity and utilization improvement. Okay, so if I scroll down, you'll see. So I can look at anyone. I've got progress bars indicating whether I'm under or over capacity. I can allocate people to projects as well. So if I need a developer on the Quicksilver project, now I can see Chris is already assigned for 40 hours, but I need another 40 hours to be allocated. Now I can see Bethany as a developer, so she's definitely got the capacity. So it's just a case of going in and saying I'm going to give her 40 billable hours. Now, if I double click in there, you'll see what that's doing is it's obviously creating a role forecast record for Bethany. I can specify a skill if I want to. It's relating to the Quicksilver project, and it's for the entire duration of May. Now I can change those dates to be, maybe it's only for the first 2 weeks of May that I need to do this. I can then also, obviously it's pulling in her rates, and then I can put in billable, non-billable hours requirements. So obviously I'm able to come down and like create role forecast records for all of the people that I'm dealing with. So again, I might put 30 hours of project management time for Colin on this Quicksilver project as well. So we're able to ensure that we're staying within capacity, but we're allocating these resources onto these projects. So I'll just save those role forecasts. So the information I'm obviously looking at back in my settings, I'm looking at like from the 1st of May through to the 31st of May. So what that will do is it will factor in all role forecasts that start and end within that period of time. Anything beyond those dates, I would need to be adjusting my filters to take that into account. So really what I'm doing here is looking at my resources for one particular month, working out what projects that they need to be assigned to. So I'm able to create my role forecasts directly from here. I can double click in to make changes if I need to, and I can get insight into that double resourcing element. So again, looking at Colin's record, we've assigned 50% of his billable capacity to the Aprika project, which gives us 70 hours, but only 18 of those hours have been allocated to individual actions. So giving us obviously optimization of resources and working out who can and can't be moved on to something else. So I'll just jump back into the filters and just show you that you can group that. So let's say I group it by master team. So this is now grouped. I've got my developers. I've got people who aren't in a master team. I've got my project managers. If I just jump back and look at function, so I'm now grouping it by function. So if I want to look at all of my developers together, then all of my project managers, all of my consultants, I'm able to do that. Now you'll see when so there are settings that control the pagination. So I'll just jump in and show you those. So within the Assignment Manager. So you've got the ability to choose whether you're hiding the project billable columns or the non-billable columns. So obviously you might just want to be dealing with billable work or non-billable work, so you can choose to hide the columns so you're not taking up too much space. You can also choose, if you're purely looking at this from a role forecast perspective and you don't want to take a look at the action assignments, you can also hide that row. And then you can control the pagination, so the number of records that are displayed. So you can control the number of roles that are displayed per page and the number of projects that are displayed per page. So you can go from anything from 5 up to 25. So you can have 25 roles, 25 projects, or a mixture of the two. So this is going to be a great tool for resource managers in context of looking at capacity on the resource planner. One of the things that we've always been asked for is there an ability to edit that information directly from the planner. So obviously the planner is very complex, pulling together a lot of data from different places. So we've introduced the assignment manager to allow resource managers to come in and do mass creation and editing of role forecasts to help with that resource planning. So hopefully you get to put this to good use. We're going to take a look at the enhancements that have been made to the Gantt chart, specifically a new feature that we're adding in called constraint scheduling. Before we jump into that, just to let you know, as part of this this release, the Gantt chart library has been updated. There's no major change to functionality. The main differences that you'll notice are a few changes to the UI. So you'll just notice the bars on the timeline are a little more rounded than they used to be. There's some slight changes, like these used to be plus and minus signs, they're just arrows now. And the other key thing is the color of the dependency links. So previously, a dependency that was not part of the critical path would be orange. You can see now that it's grey, and they're just a bit more curved. The dependencies, the dependencies that are part of critical path continue to be red, as you can see here. Okay, so constraint scheduling. Just before, so this is a feature that you can turn on or off. So with that setting turned off, you'll just be using dependencies as you normally would. So, for example, if I reschedule the prepare training, the deliver training is automatically going to move with it, maintaining the dependency, factoring in any lead and lag. So if I drag that back here, the deliver training will come with it as well. So what we're going to do now is just take a look at how that differs when we have constraint scheduling turned on. So to turn on constraint scheduling, so on the mission control pad on the console, within the Gantt chart settings, there's a feature called enable constraint scheduling. So once you've turned that on, just come down and click save, and then depending on whether you're using the system-wide override for the settings, you want to tick the constraints setting there. Or I'll just jump back onto my individual Gantt chart here. And just to show you, within the settings, I need to have my constraints turned on. So if I update that, you'll notice that as a result of turning on the constraint settings, I've now got these two new fields, constraint type and constraint date. So there's a number of different constraint types. I'll just jump in to show you. So by default, everything is just going to be set to as soon as possible. You've also got, so there's definitions for each one of these within the release notes, but you've got start no earlier than, start no later than, finish no earlier than, finish no later than, must start on, must finish on. So you can control when how your dependencies work within these constraints. So, as an example, let's say we've just been looking at the prepare training and deliver training. So where the constraint type comes in is, let's say a customer has come to us and said, we can't physically schedule this training in before the 19th. So what we're going to do is actually reschedule that. So we're going to mark this as start no earlier than, and we're going to move that to the 19th. So you'll see, as a result of me entering the constraint date, the deliver training, it's still got the dependency on prepare training materials, because obviously we can't deliver the training before we've prepared the training materials, but we've now got this visual indicator that we've got a constraint saying that this can't start any earlier than this. So I'll just save that. Now, just to show you, so like we did earlier, if I happen to reschedule the prepare training to start on the 19th, that dependency is still going to automatically reschedule the child record. So obviously, within the constraint, we're saying it can't start earlier than this date, but obviously it could start later. So as a result of the training materials being delayed, the deliver training action has been rescheduled as well. Where the constraint gets applied in this scenario is, let's say we manage to start preparing the training materials earlier. So instead of being on the 12th, we're going to pull that forward to the 7th. Now, even though we've managed to start this earlier and we're aiming to have this finished earlier, the deliver training will not come past the constraint date. So even though the dependency might say, you could physically start the training because you've completed the predecessor, with the constraint date in place, we're not able to deliver the training any earlier because the client has told us they can't do it before the 19th. So all of these different constraint types all have different logic. So as I say, whether it's start no earlier than or start no later than. So another example, the client might tell you that they need to have the training delivered by a specific date. So you could do it before that, but you couldn't do it later than that. So the constraint will prevent you from scheduling that action beyond that date. So all of these different ones. We know we do have some customers that are looking for this functionality. As I say, it's something that you need to enable. So the steps to enable are obviously controlled within the release notes. So we look forward to hearing how you get on with that. In Mission Control, you already have the ability to track the completion percentage at an action level. So when you're logging time against an action, the completion percentage will be automatically tracked. So for example, if you've got 8 hours scheduled on an action and you log 4 and you leave that completion percentage field alone, it will automatically update to say that you're 50% of the way to completion. You do also have the ability to override that as well. So for example, if you again say you've logged 4 of your 8 hours, but you haven't made as much progress as you were expecting, so you can override that to say, let's say you think you're 25% of the way completed. So as a result of that override, your projected hours can then calculate based on, if you continue at the same rate that you've been at to get to the 4 hours, it's more likely to take you 16 hours now instead of 8. So what we've done is added the ability to do the same thing at the individual checklist item level. So you'll see here I've got my home page checklist item. It's scheduled for this week. I've got 8 hours to do that. Now wherever I'm logging time, I'll have access to the checklist item completion percentage once the time log is being associated to a checklist item. So I'll just jump over onto the timesheet here. So you'll see here's my design wireframes action. Now I'm going to come in here and say I've just done 4 hours. Now, if I double click in there, I'm able to associate that to a checklist item. Now, I've still got the action completion percentage, but I can also include the checklist item now. So I'm going to say it's the homepage checklist. As a result of associating the time log to the homepage checklist, I've now got access to the completion percentage as well. So if I feel that my 4 hours are getting me 50% of the way there, I can just leave that blank. So you'll see it remains grey. That indicates that it's being automatically tracked. So if I save that and just save that time log, so what I'll do now is just jump over to that individual checklist item and just refresh that page. So if I scroll down now, you'll see that my 4 hours are logged and my completion percentage has been automatically calculated to 50%. Obviously, being 4 hours over the 8 that have been scheduled, therefore it's saying I'm 50% complete. And you can see there that my projected hours are all reflecting what has been scheduled because I'm saying I'm on track. Now, if I go back to the timesheet and log another 2 hours, so I'm going to change that to 6. I'll just add a new checklist, a new time log, and again relate it to that same checklist. But instead of leaving that to calculate automatically, I am actually going to put in that it's 50%. So I've actually logged 2 more hours, but I haven't actually made any more progress. So I'm going to keep that manually overridden to be 50% now. So once again, I'll just jump over and refresh that page. So if I scroll down, I've got my 6 hours that have now been completed. Now the difference here is you'll see that it's remaining at 50%, but the completion percentage override field has been set to true. And as a result of saying that I've taken 6 hours to get to 50% of the way there, it's now saying that my projected hours are going to be 6. So I need another 6 hours on top of the 6 I've already done, therefore making my projected total hours to be 12. So functionality works the exact same way as it does on the action. You've just got that ability to use it on the on the checklist item layer if you want to. So out of the box, all mission control objects have organization-wide sharing rules configured to be public read-write. But like any other standard or custom object in Salesforce, you can leverage the Salesforce sharing settings for mission control objects. So for example, you could apply some restrictions and set the org-wide default to be private, for example. Now, as you're assigning resources to your project, you want to make sure that they have access to the project plan, like the project, the milestones, the actions, the risks, the issues, the change requests, ultimately the full project plan. But you don't want to have to be creating, if you have chosen to configure a restricted sharing model, you don't want to have to be manually creating those sharing rules. It's going to become very time consuming. So what we've done is added in a feature that will allow you to create those automatically. So you enable this on the control pad of mission control within the project automation settings tile. There's this setting here, enable project sharing management. So if you set that to true and then click save, I'll just show you my so in my Salesforce org-wide sharing settings, you'll see I've got my project object set to private. So ultimately that means the only person that can see that by default is the person that created that record. Now, very quickly, creating a project plan, you can have multiple records like the project milestones, phases, actions, checklists, risks, issues, and so on. So some of those will be owned by different resources. So ultimately, to provide the ability to allow all of those resources, that if they've been assigned ownership on something on the project, we want to give them access to the entire project plan. Now, it depends on what level of access we want to give them. So we can choose to give each person either read or edit access. So on the role on the individual person's role record, you'll see that there's this new field that's been added. You can edit that individually for each person. I've just added it here to the list view to show you. So default sharing access, the two options are read or edit. So you'll see here for Alana, Chris and Colin, we've set that to edit. So on this rip curl project, Chris created it, so he already has access to the project. Colin has been assigned as the project owner, so he's already been given access. I'll just click through to the sharing to show you that we currently have Colin and this is Chris's user that have access to the project. Now, if I assign an action to Alana, I want to make sure that she has access to the project. So without me having to manually go and create that sharing rule. So what I can do is come down and assign that action. So I'm just going to transfer this action from, so I've got this action here for, that's currently assigned to Mick. So if I jump in, I will just reassign that to Alana. So if I click save there, so obviously what I've done is assigned ownership of something to Alana on the project. So in that private sharing model, Alana wouldn't have access to that unless I manually created a sharing rule. However, with this new functionality, we've automatically just created a sharing rule for her. So I'll just jump back in. You can now see there's an additional person, so we can see that Alana has been given the read-write access, which has been pulled from her role setting. So all of the objects that sit underneath the project, as I say, like the phase, the milestone, the action, checklist item, contributor, time log, risk issue, change request, budget item, Alana will now have full access to all of that. So if she was removed from any ownership, so if let's say we decide to reassign that to back to Mick, so Alana's got no ownership on that project anymore, then her sharing rule would be removed and she would no longer have access to that project. So it's a really good feature, dramatically reduces the manual administration required if you are running a more manual based sharing model. So we're now going to take a look at the enhancements that have been applied to the reassignment wizard. I'll just set the scene for you on this project. So I've got this project. It's currently so the project owner is Colin. You'll see that Colin also owns some phases, some milestones, some actions. What I've already done on this project is I've got a rate adjustment for Colin's role record for this individual project. There's a few things that we've enhanced on the reassignment wizard. So I'm just going to click through onto that. So first of all, we can now clone those rate adjustments. So if I'm reassigning the work that Colin is assigned to, previously I would be able to do the reassignment here, but then I would have to go and manually create rate adjustments for that new person. What I can do is now just quickly create a copy of them. The other thing I'm able to do is now reassign the phase owner. So this column previously didn't exist. Now the other thing, the other enhancement that we've added is once you've made a selection in one of these, so you'll see that Colin is a project owner, a phase owner, a milestone owner, and an action owner. Now, if I was wanting to reassign all of Colin's ownership across all of these layers, I would have had to populate these fields individually. Sorry, I just realized I was pointing to the project owner column. It was the phase owner column that has been added. But what I'm able to do, rather than having to populate all of these manually now, I'm actually able to just say, okay, well, I'm going to give this to Kelly Slater. Now, as soon as I've populated one of the fields, you'll see I get this copy button over here, which allows me to just click that once, and then that will automatically populate Kelly's name into all of those lookup fields. So rather than having to select the same person 4 times in this instance, I've selected it once, clicked on copy, and then that's populated that into all of those other fields. So just to recap, what I'm doing here is, I'm reassigning all of the work that is assigned to Colin currently. I'm reassigning it all to Kelly. So I've obviously been able to do that quickly by clicking the copy button. I'm also choosing to make a copy of that rate adjustment for Kelly as well. So if I click on save, so you'll see as a result of that reassignment, Kelly has been transferred as the project owner, the phase owner, milestone owner, action owner. So I've been able to transfer all of that ownership over. In addition to that, if I click in here and just refresh the record there, you'll see we've also created a rate adjustment automatically for Kelly to match the rate adjustment that existed for Colin. Okay, hopefully you can see some value in those features and enhancements. So let's talk about when this is going to be available. So following typical release schedule, so as of the 2nd of May, it's going to be available for you to manually upgrade from the App Exchange listing. On the 17th of May, we will be automatically upgrading to all sandbox orgs. And on the 31st of May, we'll be upgrading to all production orgs. So with all of that said, I'd like to thank you for your time. And as always, if you have any feedback that you'd like to share, feel free to get in touch. And we look forward to hearing what you think of the new functionality. Thanks. Have a good day.